Reviewing the first week of our usage of the new material painting feature, which was just released last Saturday. Um, Over the last week, I've mostly just been doing bug reports, and that's what I plan on doing for probably the next couple of weeks. Um, I think we're pretty good on features for the next release, and we just need to tidy everything up. Use the new features ourselves and make sure that everything's working as expected, and then release 098 with the next Steam sale. So we had a couple of techniques that people already sort of discovered or invented. If we go back to CoolX had the idea of combining brick with plaster, which looks very, very cool. And then Marcel showed us some shots he made of some very nice snow.
Yeah, that's how snow looks in New York, just everywhere.
Yeah, and what he really got here, what he really captured here was you have the layer where everybody walks. You have like that slush here.
Yeah,
This
the
stuff will get in your
cornstarch.
shoes if you don't have very watertight shoes. And then the fluffy snow around it. He just did such a good job of capturing that. And you can tell it's painted. You know, he painted the slush into place, or he put the slush down and put the snow on top. I'm not sure which. But it looks so good and it's so realistic. I had the idea of doing snow with this, but I did not think about this kind of stuff, which I don't think I've ever seen this in like real time 3D graphics before. I don't think I've ever seen snow done this well. Now, currently,
I,
the geometry does not use tessellation when it's casting shadows. That's one small little thing I'll enable. And when I do, I think this will look even better because then you'll get a little bit more definition on the snow. But in any case, it looks amazing. This is probably the best snow I've ever seen in computer graphics.
he probably lives in an area where it snows. You
It
can't see snow.
looks very, very, very reminiscent of like the Division, which was probably the only other game I saw that had that feature with snow.
Hmm.
It was very nice.
So let's see, what else have we got? Klepto showed us a little bit of painting some with an emission channel, which is supported. It's kind of abstract, but there's probably some cool things you could do with this, like light coming through cracks or something. I don't know. We'll let the artist decide. Um, and then I came up with a technique of my own. We talked about a couple weeks ago. We talked about hotspot texturing, and this is basically it's a predefined. You have a texture with predefined edges and rectangles defined in it, and then what you do is you take your mesh and you run a operation on it that just finds the nearest uh, rectangle that matches by size and aspect ratio, and that can produce some kind of cool results very quickly. Here's an example of how the rectangles can be divided up. But I think I came up with something better. So what I did here is I added a button in the interface that just applies. There it is, edges. I just called it. That applies a material to the edge vertices. And when you do that, you can make these beautiful edges that appear. And this has a few advantages over the hotspotting approach. I have them in a list so I don't forget them. So hotspot texturing, it only handles rectangle shapes. This will handle any shape. There's an example. So with hotspot texturing, you couldn't really do this unless your UV coordinates were like stretched out in order to support that. But that's kind of, I mean, if you're doing that, you're basically skinning the mesh already uniquely. So let's see what else. With hotspot texturing, you're going to get a lot of texture stretching, like because you're not going to have a uniform distribution of pixels, because you're just going to find something that's kind of a close match. It's not going to handle like repeating textures, like, because this texture does not repeat. With this approach where you're just painting the edges, it's a lot more versatile. I can resize this thing, and the edges maintain the same size. They're not getting stretched out like they would if I just had like one texture applied here. And I can make this as big as I want. I can have the texture repeat as many times as I want, and there's no problem. It just maintains the same exact ratio for the edge vertices. So I think this actually works out really, really well. Let's see. Yeah, with hotspot texturing, like I can change. Let's see. I can modify this material. Let's make it dark and get a different look. With hotspot texturing, it's just kind of baked in. So what you see is what you have forever. I hope you like it.
Or go back to the art department.
Yeah. But with this, we have a lot more versatility. If I don't like this texture, this material, I can swap it out with something else. So you don't always have to match. You can mix and match your edges and your materials. So there's less work to set up like in advance. You don't have to predefine everything so much. With this, you do have per edge control basically. So this diving board thing is bugging me. I want to get rid of it for some reason. Okay, so if I don't like this bottom edge here like that, let's just 10 centimeters, 100 strength.
If I want to do,
Oh, I need to make sure I have the...
this one.
Yeah, I've got that selected.
It's gonna paint on the floor though.
No, because I don't have any vertices there. I don't know what's going on right now. But you can remove it from edges.
So if you don't like it on the bottom, you can just go in with the paintbrush tool and erase it. But
what's actually going on here? I didn't subdivide this this brush. I just threw it out really quickly, so it is a little strange. Like,
oh, I see it.
I'm not sure whether it's not working though.
You can bug check it later.
Let me just try. It's a bit bigger.
This is why you don't join betas unless you want to.
Yeah.
It's a new feature though.
Will you enable this features also for the painting for normal models, that you can paint on models?
Not yet, but I definitely want to. I definitely plan to do that. Anyways, I'll figure that out later. I don't want to do it when we're doing a video, but I mean, basically, yeah, it looks very, very cool. It's a very easy way to get additional detail into a scene, and this looks just like so much better. Let's take a look at this versus just a plain brush. Okay, so go into here, clear that layer, get rid of the bevels. This would be like just your standard brush, like from 097 actually. That's all you could ever do with it. And then now this is in 098. Like, you've got bevels, you've got details on the edges. There's quite a lot more we can do with this without a lot of effort. Hasn't been released yet, by the way. This is all in the beta, so some things are still up in the air, but you can see how it basically works.
Is this live in the beta though, or is this on your end and just didn't push it out?
No, this is the version that was released yesterday. So.
All right, yeah, I'll have to give Edges a try. I didn't have much time this week, but I remember trying to get it to work, and then I had to update my shaders, and I saw that the common folder was a mess.
Yeah, it's just super, super easy to get additional detail. Big improvement without a lot of effort.
Right.
Let's see. Okay. Is there anything else? Oh yeah. I also was I was kind of thinking about like, what if instead of just having the edge, so the edges are using the same UV coordinates as the material itself, but what if we made that edge a little bit bigger, and then we did some extra UV mapping along those edges to where like it went in this direction. The texture was like aligned to the edge.
Oh, like that for hazard strips and such, right?
Well, and then I was thinking like take, some science fiction trim like this. Like what if this piece right here was in its own texture, or this piece, and then we just applied it and told it to use that second UV coordinate set, and you just had like those trim pieces aligned automatically along the sides here, along here, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just an idea. I'm not going to rush to implement it because I want to.
Yeah, I mean the same effect can be done with an extra brush, but because that's how you would normally do it. But that would be actually
you could do. It's just like a few extra steps. Like you'd have to go like that, and then like that, and then apply a different material like that. Yeah, so yeah, you can still do it. That actually looks pretty cool. Yeah, the bevel really makes it look like there's like, it makes it look like there's an indentation here. Let me actually, I want to see what happens if I get rid of the bevel on these faces.
Yeah, you get that sharp. Doesn't look as good.
Oh, I like how it looks in the corners here.
Yeah.
We also might, I'm kind of thinking about like a per edge.
Bevel.
Yeah, well, bevels and other features. Actually, I just want to bring that in, and then bring that over. Oh, that's not good because this is, I forgot, like, it actually tricked me. I forgot that this is flush with these surfaces. But yeah, so I think there's still a lot we can discover and do with this. Oh yeah, and then of course, like the first thing I did with this when we first had it working was, just the alien residue growing all over everything. I thought that was very, very cool. That's something we haven't really been able to do before. I thought there's a, let's see, texturecan.com. They have some good, like, organic materials here. They've got one that looks like some weird, like, alien eggs or something, like, growing in, like, mucus or something. It's very cool. They've also got some xenomorph looking thing. Like it looks like the
I think you passed it. Go back up. Next page. Over. Page 2, maybe. go down, let's go down, let's go down, let's go down. Up, is that up? Up? Is
No,
that it?
that's spider webs.
No, middle.
Candle
Melted
wax.
one. Well, it still looks cool.
It does, but they've got. Where is it? It's wood, plastic. I don't know. I can't find it now.
So wait, is the PBR feature new as well?
No, we've had PVR rendering since the beginning.
That's what I thought. I mean, this looks pretty impressive, though. I like the library. I like the options people have done.
Is there an option to share the editor viewport with a game that you can press a run button and you run in the viewport?
Well-
Because the reason is why I'm asking if you work on a bigger project, for example, and then you have to run the editor and the game at the same time, so you have basically the resources doubled in the video memory, for example. So you can't really test the game if you have only 12 gigabytes in your video card.
Well, there were versions versions of Leadworks where, like early versions where you could actually do that. It's not great because I mean you would have to compile your game as a DLL somehow for that to even work. Because I mean, how would it execute the code otherwise? And like it's a good idea for games to be in their own process, because if they aren't, then there's always like issues with like things not getting cleaned up properly.
And you end up with like Unreal where it always crashes on you.
It's well, I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but like it's like the idea of, I know like this was like when Crytek first did that with like, I think it was the first CryEngine. They showed that like the game running in the editor, and at the time I thought it was kind of cool, and like it was like, oh wow, amazing. And then you actually like you realize it's actually really good for that to be a separate process with its own memory space and everything, because otherwise it's gonna like, if you have something in your code that doesn't, I mean, first of all, like it would require a huge change in the whole structure of the engine, but like it's really, when that process ends, all the memory is cleaned up, all the resources are freed. So it's actually really good to be running that in a separate program, I think.
The reason was because if my game is running in the editors, and then the video memory is full, so
I would say you've got to like decrease your texture, whatever. Either
but for this I would need to know which models has a huge which models using which memory, or which amount of memory.
Yeah, I mean, we would not be able to take like like any C++ application and then just run it in the editor. That wouldn't work at all.
Well,
No, but in feature that shows you the model, or the selected model, which, how much memory this is using, for example.
so you want like a profiler?
Not really like profiler, so maybe if you open a model that you can see how much video memory this is using, for example.
Let's see.
Also the whole scene, that you can see how much memory the scene is using. So you can reduce maybe some stuff.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard to list that here, like VRAM. I think we might actually list it on for the textures. Yeah, the textures actually do list each individual texture.
Yeah, but if
indicates
you
its
have a model
VRAM.
with multiple textures, then
Yeah, I think we can probably add that pretty easily. Actually, I think I can add that this week. Just have it appear like probably right under here. That would be
This would
pretty
be
handy.
great.
Okay. Um.
Just like to go back to the materials a little bit. It's now it looks like we have two types of materials. We have materials that are like are meant for the walls and stuff, and then we also have materials that are meant to be decals or painted on. So I'm thinking as a designer, how would I better organize that? Where if I have textures for my base textures, we're gonna call them my base textures, and then like the detail textures. So I'm just trying to think about like how would I separate them in my project, because obviously like this, like if you go back to the website, there's like a texture with just cigarette buds. Obviously I don't want that on my walls and floors. But I don't know.
A lot of times they, I've seen this with Ambient CG and somebody else. They have, they'll put stuff like this in a folder called Surface Imperfections.
Okay.
I'm not sure yet if, well,
Well, it's up to the developer of the game to organize their assets. I'm just think that's just like the current thought in my head. Like, oh well, how do I want like when you do your base texture, like all right, you want your bricks, your concrete, your whatever. You don't want to go through like alien slime and cigarette buds and rocks on a beach and all that to get through what you want to get through. So
so how do you
it's more
decide like which materials go together?
yeah, yeah, that too. Like, I mean, it's still an art, so you can't automate everything, but I guess like you just have to like figure out how to organize and differentiate between what is a base material and what is for painting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we also need to. What I did there is I just removed the bottom edges of those, and then so there's no longer a bevel right here, so it doesn't look like it's being like tucked in
Oh yeah,
at
we
the
have to do
bottom.
auto hide on hidden faces or faces where the sun doesn't shine.
So let's see. Well, I mean, I guess the question right now is like we don't even know like how materials are combined. Does if I take another kind of concrete and paint it on here, does it look good? Like, do base materials are they really strictly divided up that way, or maybe they're not? I don't know.
In my brain, they are, because when you do like a texture like the old way, right? Let's think about the textures in Cyclone for a little bit. I know it's made for a different engine, but those are like meant to be follow the UV coordinates of the brush, because the tiles, floors, they're concrete panels. They're meant to be in sync with the UVs and the grid pattern. Obviously, you don't want to paint those textures on. Those are your base textures. And this concrete texture will probably be a base texture because it has lines in it that divide it up. But if you take like a generic material, like a gravel material or a slime material or something that it's repeating but not tiles, I guess the best way to put it, you can use that as a detail or surface material. But like hardwood flooring, plaster is either way, because plaster is just plaster. It's the things around it that make it good. Brick, bricks, stone, like stone roads, sidewalks, like things that could be tiled and are more reliant on the UVs of the brush. I think I would categorize those as like base materials, and then like everything else that could be tiled and painted on as like surface materials.
See, this
That's
is what
my
this is why I love this feature right here. You just like you can use this grout or whatever to sort of like make a transition between different materials that looks a lot more
Right.
natural. It's so cool. I think there's basically like you've got so a lot of things are made out of multiple layers. Snow is made out of, well, could be considered multiple layers. You can have, bricks underneath plaster peeking through. You can have paint with stuff underneath it. So that's one way to think of about it is like multiple layer surfaces. And then another way to think of it is like stuff that just like stuff that's like basically damage to surfaces, which would be like all these edge details. That's another way to think of it.
I see as wear and damage is more details, where it's like a crater in the like craters and cracks and unique cracks and everything.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think this is just something we have to like keep using it and figure out. I think there's still a lot to learn.
No, I'm just trying to. Again, I was thinking about organization and how to best structure a project.
When we talk about structure, a few weeks ago, I talked about an idea that you can show, for example, at which location the model, if you have a model in the scene, at which location it is, like with a path or something. I'm not sure if you can yeah.
Wait, can you say that again, please?
A few weeks ago, we talked about the possibility to see where a model is located. If you put, for example, this box in the scene that you have in the inspector, a field that you can see where the location for this model is.
You mean the position in space?
No, not the position, the location in the file system where the model.
Oh
is
yeah,
stored.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, we definitely need that for sure.
Yeah, especially if like things move around and such, and then map stuff. We also need the map when the map can't load anything. It just deletes it from the map, right?
So maybe an option to replace this model with another. So I think in the end it's a button like a folder prostier look or something.
Yeah, there'll be a tab that says model, and then the only thing I can think to put in it is just some kind of field that says like exactly what you're saying. It's a little bit tricky to like the replacing it is a little bit tricky because that means you're replacing parts. It's not just one object, it's a bunch of objects in the hierarchy sometimes, so that has to be worked out, but simply displaying it and being able to open up this model file, I think we can get that in the next couple of weeks or pretty soon.
You also mentioned that you want to restructure the object tab. You want to put the name, the matrix, and the tags like up top instead of having a transform loaded box. You want to get rid of the transform thing.
Oh,
and you just
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know if it was your idea. Now you're out the lunch, right? So.
Well, I don't think it's that important. Do you?
It's not that important, but if you're going to add a file path to it, it's not under physics. It's not something you can see, and it doesn't have anything to do with transformation. So
put it in there, yeah. That might be a good idea.
Yeah, so because that idea came up because I was like, why is tags under appearance? I can't see it. I can't see tags.
Yeah. So just have this like be like general settings.
Yeah, general. I have the name and the file path if it's not a brush.
Or maybe if we have that much stuff, we maybe just have like another tab that says general and have that separate from the transform section.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Also, what something cool would be, or I think it's necessary, but you didn't notice it. If you go, for example, into the in the engine, in the editor, and select filter, for example, that you want to see only material files in the project tab. That you go here and say, okay, only model files or materials, and yeah, if you want to see everything now, you would create an own, well, you need to create an own filter to display everything again.
Wouldn't you
He
just?
wants. I think he wants folder filters per folder. So you only see the models in the models folder, without you refiltering every time.
So in other so in other words, like remember the filter for each material for each folder.
Yeah, the only downside is that people will forget, and they'll be like, "Why can I not find the texture file in the models folder?" And they might.
No,
No,
yeah,
Uh,
I actually thought about doing that and setting it up so that by default, like the materials folder only shows materials and the models folder only shows models, and then it's also like recursive. So like if a new folder is added, it will
no,
inherit the settings of the parent.
it's not what I mean. I mean that you add in the drop-down list and reset function. I mean, you can delete it with selecting all, and yeah, just remove the text out of it, but maybe a field in here.
Okay, so just have the first item just be like an asterisk.
Yeah, for example, or something, or show all files and
Yeah, that's
something
probably
like this.
more. That's probably more user friendly. Okay, yeah, I can do that. Um, the other, I did a little bit more research on this system, and I think I have everything worked out. Like, there's some legal stuff. I have to register as a what is it called? Something for the so that I can have
redistribute.
the DMCA, so I'm not liable if somebody uploads copyrighted such and such. So that I can get that taken care of. It looks like everything else, it looks like it's free and clear. This gives you an idea of what we'll have, and we can, I believe, REST API. I believe you can filter by author. Let's see, categorize files. This is the endpoint I'm looking for. I just want to make sure there's a field here. Yeah, authors. Okay, cool. So what that means is we can load this up with everything from Ambient CG because it's all released under CCO, public domain, and other websites and such. And you can still filter it, but like if you only want to see ambient CG materials, then we can have like a checkbox where it'll only show you that. So yeah, what I'm thinking is replacing what this and probably not making this based on Lua anymore. Probably just hard coding it in C++ because I don't think there's going to be a bunch of different websites that we integrate because there's only 2 that I know of. But yeah, so I see that as like a replacement for our ambient CG plugin, and that'll give us probably about 3,000 PBR materials, none of which have to be checked for quality because they're all pretty good. And then
Have you? Wait, I might have missed something. Are you going to be able to access, say, like the Unreal PBR library, or no?
you mean through Fab?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what their terms are, and they're not being very transparent with it. So I'm not. I mean, if it works, then I'm not opposed to integrating it, but I'm not. I'm not going to make any plans around that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
if that wants to push Unreal stuff, so.
I figure it's probably not. I mean, if they're buying up all these different websites, marketplaces, and trying to combine them into their own system, I figure it's probably going to be bad for me somehow without knowing the exact details. So I'm not
That's
going
a safe bet.
Yeah. What's something you need for to make a game? What's a 3D model you need?
Um,
I don't know, rocks, wood, brushes, houses,
One,
stuff
one,
like that.
one,
building-
one thing, guys.
Sure.
AI.
Door, yeah, that's a good one.
There's your door.
I like that one better. Or,
There's
I
another
like that one.
Okay, so you've
Yeah,
got you've got some doors. That actually looks pretty good.
Some have the frame on them, which I don't care for, but
Well, fortunately, you have a lot. Well, what's something else?
Automobile, dude. Let's see what they come up with that.
Automobile. Oh yeah, of course they're gonna have a ton of cars. Can you be more specific?
Model T. Do a Model T.
I don't know if the
Yeah,
search
no,
terms are
Not
gonna
quite
work
what
very
I was
well.
thinking, but a Model T
Ferrari.
car.
Let's see if I can. I think it's just messing up because you're getting like T-Rex and stuff like that.
Oh, no, I think you'd have to define it as like Model T automobile or something. Because that'd be like the Ford Model T. You could try that.
Let's just try Ford. Oh, these are interesting cars.
Can you see maybe a
Oh,
Ferrari?
okay.
Oh, there it is, right there, 1911 Model T. Nice.
what's that, Andy?
A Ferrari, maybe. I think this is a more common car.
Today, maybe. I don't know. How many Ferraris and Model Ts do you think there are in the world? Ferrari.
Yeah, but
Well, there's
Ferrari
way more
is-
Ferraris.
And okay, so we want to get rid of. Well, let's not worry about the licenses right now. Let's. I just want to filter out like vertex count. What's our maximum vertex count we want? 103,000 is actually fine, I think, for a car. Texture count. We want texture. So actually, let's look at it this way. Okay, there are 800,000 3D models in this database. Okay. We want at least one texture. Now there are 500,000. Okay. We want the vertex count to be less than 200,000, right?
Okay.
Okay, now there are 400,000. View count? They should have at least 100 views. Let's say 100 likes.
You have to. I think you have to apply both of them at the same time.
How?
No, I mean just you have to check both of them. You can't do two and then check one.
Yeah.
It's not that intuitive.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a link. So, okay, so now we just cut it out down to 8,700 models have 100 likes and 1,000 views.
Well, it said when in the texture section, it said up to 1,400 textures, like as in various maps applied to the model.
I'm not sure if that's textures or materials, but I just know I don't want any untextured models. Okay, so now let's search for Ferrari. Okay, we're getting better results now, aren't we?
Oh, that's much better. That is pretty good.
So we just
That's just nice.
yeah, we just cut through all the nonsense and got some good results. All of these can be downloaded. These are not hosted on Sketchfab. These are hosted on Huggingverse AI.
Hugging face.
Yeah, and actually I did a test. Let's see. Have a test here. This birthday cake. I entered this into our system. Where's that URL coming from? Objiverse thumbnail images. If I download this, it's not actually on our server. It's on Hugging Face, which I think is fine because they're advertising this as a database that they want everyone to use. So I think it should be fine. If there's any problem, I mean, 8,000 models. How many terabytes do you think? How many gigabytes do you think this is? I'm gonna say it's probably 50 megabytes per model on average, times 8,000. Okay, so it's that many megabytes divided by 1024. It's that many 390 gigabytes times 0.023 cents for storage costs per month. So $9 a month. If I were to host all of this on S3, not counting the transfer fees. The transfer fees could actually get a lot more. I think it's 9 cents on average, or 5 cents. I think it's 5 cents per gigabyte transferred, which doesn't sound like much, but let's say we have a limit of 100 gigabytes times 0.05 cents. Okay, so $5, right? So $5 to transfer 100 gigabytes on average. I think that's within like the U.S. and Europe. Let's say 1,000 people do that each month. Okay, now data transfer is $5,000 a month. Okay, now we're talking real money.
That sounds about right, actually. I was trying to check that from when I've done data analytics, and that sounds close. You'd probably be spending a bit more because they're not going to actually throttle you on the data. They're just going to let you go over, and then they'll charge you an extra fee.
I think you can set S3 to throttle it, but I do have a way of I can limit the bandwidth on a per user account. I can limit the amount of data you're able to download through this system. So what we might need to do is have like a free limit, and then if you go past that, we might need to charge like $9.99 or something a month to download like, I don't know, like a terabyte or something like that. Or maybe
So
it's
my question is, you want this integrated into the editor? How? And now you're saying that you need the user account to be associated with the editor, which is easy to do on the standalone. But what about Steam? Because usually people on Steam don't want to sign into something else.
to use it, they'll have to. This will just be like a sign-in screen. And like what I'm saying is like if I do charge for money, it'll only be for like heavy use. I think most people will never hit the limits. But
Right.
I just need to have like a plan in place so it doesn't I don't end up with like runaway expenses.
Right.
That's a good idea.
So
I when it comes to scraping things like Hugging Face, which I often work with, as you know, I've run into some of those limits. And if you put those in place beforehand and then you give users the option, most people are willing to pay a few bucks a month to get access.
makes sense. Let's see. So, yeah, I mean, I think probably most people are nowhere near the limits right now, so not really anything that they need to worry about.
So are these are raw SFLs? These are not ready to go for Ultra Engine, correct? If you were to upload on the site.
If I upload them on the site, if I upload it directly on our website, I would probably process them first in a batch, because I figured out with PBR materials, for example, once you compress them to DDS and do the channel packing and everything, that gets them down to about a third the size that the original zipped ping files would be.
Right.
So I don't plan on distributing the source files because that's a lot of data and you can always get it back from the original author. But I do want to just have like a link in the description to the page, to like the Ambient CG page for this item. And then if you want to get like, I'm not going to upload like the 8K images. I'm going to do 1K, 2K, 4K. But if you want to go back and get the 8 or 16K if they have it, then you can.
researched a Blender library with materials, and I was asking this guy because I think also he is selling some stuff from Ambient CG, and he also only sells the 2K files in this pre-built library, and he says it's more than enough. The most of the people don't really need 4K textures.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if I were to skip the 4K, then all the storage space goes down, and all the uploading time and processing that goes down 4 times. Like each time you increase the resolution, it increases your total database like by a lot.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I would ask the question: why would you need a texture larger than 4096 by 4096 to begin with? At that point, you're already pushing it.
I can show you. Let's see.
Like a diff map, I understand, but if you have like with normal
no.
maps and stuff, you can easily scale those down.
I didn't
I
want
think you
Sketchfab.
need-
I'm thinking of
I-
Polyhaven.
I think you need AK for CGI stuff when you build something like this house or something like this. For architecture and some other stuff, not for games.
I'll show you why. Because the texture is meant to be spread over a larger area. So one thing that's nice that that Polyhaven does is they tell you the area that the texture is supposed to cover. So this is actually a 90 meter wide section, and you don't have to use it that way, but this is meant to cover a very large area. And so for this, if you were using it that way, I actually would want the 8K resolution for this. I mean,
So wait, is this like this is rocky terrain? Is this just the texture, or does this have like the mesh data, or what exactly am I looking at here?
These are just it's just got displacement, normal, all the stuff for PBR. That is an interesting height map. That's really interesting.
I almost want to say that was generated in like Adobe or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like I'm not sure what they did there, but there's definitely like some trickery going on.
That's
very cool.
Yeah, that doesn't. I've done height maps using various cameras and lighting and stuff, and that looks like that was software generated. I mean, it's all software, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's going to give us, like, if we had all of that stuff in there, and then you'd still be able to filter by the author over here. So if you just wanted to look at one author, you can. I think that's going to give us, like, it won't give you everything that you possibly need for your game. Like, as we discovered, like, view models are really hard to come by, and animated characters in general are pretty hard to come by. I mean, there's a lot of them available actually to purchase, but you're not going to get that stuff for free. But this will give you like a lot of stuff to start with, and even if you just don't even know what you want to make, like, you can just like search around for things. There's a really beautiful model in here. I'm not sure if this is the one. Even if you're not sure, I don't think this is the one that I wanted. Even if you're not sure what you wanted to make, you can just, Google around or search around and find something cool, and maybe it will inspire you. And so all of that,
that model you just scrolled by, that Stargate one. I know the guy who made that.
Where?
I was on the right side. That one right there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so just having easy access to some of that stuff, and we've seen the effect that having ambient CG integration into the editor has been very positive. So this is just kind of my plan for taking it to the next step. Any questions about that before we go forward?
No, go ahead, Andy.
With the materials, but it's more related to the editor. So you can assign the materials within the model, right? If you go to the model, open the model, and then you can track the material to it. I
Yeah.
think it would be cool if you could can track the material in the editor to the model surface you want to apply it. This would be really cool if something like this would work. For example, if you have the box now in the editor already in your scene, and then you put the concrete texture on the model in the editor scene, that he applies this material automatically.
To just that one instance, or to
Yeah, I think to all instances, because it's instance based rendered, right? So
yeah, that's why it doesn't do it actually. Okay, let's see. Let's walk through this. Okay, I want this box to be made out of concrete. Oh, okay, it doesn't do it, but let's just pretend it did. We also have to. Okay.
You couldn't legworks if I recall correctly.
Yeah, but there's some issues with that. Like,
Yeah, I never did it.
that's not gonna save. Like, I'm gonna have to. The reason it doesn't do it is because, do I want that to save into the model file itself?
No.
Or do I just want that to happen to be saved in the scene, and just whenever I open this one scene, I know that every instance of this object will be using that material?
I think it should be instance, but if you change the texture or something, it creates a copy and it's technically a new asset.
But why not just save it to the scene then?
Yeah.
And we can,
yeah.
but I intentionally have not done that because, in order to avoid confusion. But if you guys think that what Andy's suggesting is better, then we could.
handy. I think this is more handy because otherwise you need to open the model first and then track the material in the model, and yeah.
We can try it
Well,
and then just see how, like.
I would assume if you set it up where you could save it to the scene, you could just copy that scene file across whatever instance you want to use it in. So, wouldn't that be a more valid thing to do? Sorry.
I don't know. If you guys want me to, I'll just try it, and then we can try it and like review it before like 098 goes out and see if it's really how we want to do things.
Right. I think having uniquely textured things is actually a plus, because right now we don't have like skins at this point. So otherwise, I would just make it a skin.
I would argue, coming from engine development side, that the more options you give someone to do, the better the end product ends up looking, because the end user can make more choices of how they want to control the scene or control the model. And I would say if you're able to do that, Josh, then yeah, you can make it where someone can apply one skin in one scene, save it as a scene file, and then integrate that into whatever they're doing, and it doesn't actually modify the original asset. It's pretty useful.
As a general thing, I would argue that too many ways of doing things is a sign of indecision.
That's true.
I would.
Okay, so
Maybe.
All right, so we want to apply that to material to a model. Okay, cool. What if we want to apply it to a mesh within that? Okay, let me run one thing by you guys. Now, we have talked about material, like the material painting. This is not something I was even thinking about like until 2 weeks ago, right? I just started this 2 weeks ago, and I implemented it in a week. Might have released it a little bit too soon, but that's okay, because I fixed the last Saturday we had a bunch of shader bugs in some other systems, but that's all worked out now. So we've said like, oh, this is so great. Now we want to be able to paint models as well, just like this, because right now we can only paint constructive solid geometry with this. like our level
Yeah,
design
how come-
primitives.
How come you can't just select the model and then just fill it with the texture you want?
Because models are instanced.
Aw.
But I said, okay, well, I agree this is very valuable, and there's a lot of situations I can think of where I would want to be able to just paint. Like I want, like I'm so excited about this feature. I'm like really excited about the idea of actually like going back. I'm gonna get a 3ds Max license and start modeling again, because I want to be able to like create like some pipes or a fence piece here, and then go in and paint like dirt or rust around the base of it and have it appear on the ground and blend together with the post that's coming out of the ground. I think it's going to look so good. So in order to do that, you have to have a little bit. It's like, okay, well, models, they're still going to be instanced, but we're going to have a little bit of unique data that's stored for each instance as well. It's associated with the entity. It's going to be there's going to be a pointer in the entity data that's going to be an offset into an array where all this other extra mesh data is stored. So there you have per instance mesh data just for the vertex material weights. Okay. Well, it wouldn't be that hard if we have per instance mesh data, which is a huge change in paradigms, but okay. If we have that, it wouldn't be that hard to add 4 integer values to the beginning of that data. And those 4 integer values would indicate the material that is applied to that instance of that mesh.
That was actually what I was trying to get at. That makes a lot of sense, and I think that would actually be a really, really good thing to have.
And it works in our renderer because bindless textures.
Yeah.
I
the
think.
biggest-
Let me think. A second. Okay, yeah, I can work all that out. Okay, yeah. So we use bindless texture a lot. We rely very heavily on bindless textures in this renderer, and it's been fantastic because we can just access any texture we want. We don't have all the restrictions, so we can have 4 materials with 7 or however many textures we want applied to each material and have them all blending together in the scene. That's a reason why we'll never have an OpenGL renderer for Mac, because they don't support bindless textures, but Mac isn't really something I'm thinking about. Anyways, the jump to Linux is much easier. Linux is way more compatible with Windows than Mac is now.
And I think it's more what customers want, because they want to be able to play games on their Steam Decks. And
Yeah, it's very rare. It's very rare for anybody to ask me. Like somebody asked me yesterday about Mac, but it doesn't, like, as far as I'm concerned, like it's almost like Apple has basically exited the market. They're not integrating DirectX onto Mac OS now because Metal's been a big hit.
Yeah, they want you to develop on their ecosystem and only for their ecosystem. But it would be a good, the only thing it would be is cool, but not very useful or profitable, in my opinion.
Yeah, the issue again, just comes down to time is not infinite. So it's like, what can I do how can I use the resources I have to do things that move the dial. And I think what we found is the material painting feature is something that really, really people have responded very positively to that. If you go and look at
it also solves problems that you and I were having. Because you were thinking about texturing like it was Half-Life 2, and everything is set up for vertex painting and everything. So
yeah, this is
actually. I'm just saying, you just adopted an old technology to use the new standards, and it's a perfect blend of the two, because you get you have your easy CSG tools from Hammer, but you have the modern painting stuff and texturing tools of modern engines and programs.
Yeah, and the thing I really like about this is it's easy enough for everybody to use. So, like I pointed out, this is what we could do, before 2 weeks ago, here's what we can do now. Let's see if we can even look at. I want to get a better comparison of this.
I was earlier. You mentioned 3ds Max, so like Autodesk. Like, what would the benefits for you be for getting a license for Autodesk exactly?
Oh, I do mechanical modeling. Okay, yeah, there's the difference, guys.
Yeah.
Which looks better to
Big
you?
difference. The left one. It looks more natural.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you could do this to models, then yeah, you could blend stuff together pretty easy.
Yeah. Paint vines and stuff, and maybe paint that like alien slime goo on like door frames and stuff. That would be cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and we also
And also to the model material applying, you could also if you go short back to this, you could also open dialog, and then you can ask, do you want to create a new instance? And then yeah, you just create a new model within the same directory, but with another material. I think this would be more easy.
No,
I don't know yet.
that's a generational leap, Josh, which is impressive. I'll give you that. Damn.
It's yeah, and this isn't. I mean, this is honestly like this is stuff we could have been doing this in like Leadworks the last, in Leadworks in probably in like 2018 maybe. It's not super high technology. It's just really convenient and really easy to set up something that looks good.
All the engine developers I know, you've done a fantastic job with your iterations.
Oh, thank you. By the way, Steam reviews are the lifeblood of Ultra. So, I think we have Ultra Engine Pro right now has very high review rate. It has 19 Steam reviews. So if we get one more, we'll hit 20. And I think it changes categories. I'm guessing they probably put the cutoff point at 20 because it kind of changes categories at 10. And I think we might see it change categories again at 20. So it'll be interesting to see that. But if we get one more review, then we'll hit that 20. That helps us more than anything else because I plan to go back to Valve at some point when we're at 1.0 and say, look, this technology is so great. Our users are very happy with it. It's very cool. This is going to do great things for your VR ecosystem. It would be really great if you could feature us in a special sale as they have before. That will be the best. That'll make the single biggest difference for the future of Ultra. And it's also a great thing for you because what we discovered, the Leadworks Games Bundle was released about a month ago. Everyone who participated in this, their sales increased by 3 times. And so what this proves, this is kind of a test run because Leadworks is an older product. It doesn't have the same visibility that Ultra does, but it shows that if I have a product on Steam that is ranked highly, then any games that you release that are put into a bundle along with, in this, for Ultra, except instead of for Leadworks, you will also get increased coverage, increased sales. It's a win for me. It's a win for you. It's a win for the players. So that's my pitch for adding your review on Steam. It really makes a big difference. I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you want, but I don't really care about YouTube.
based.
It's true.
I need to start doing them towards the beginning of the video. I feel like I'm doing it feels like the segue, the sponsorship segues in like LTT videos. Like this segue to our sponsor.
Going back to the materials, is there we talked about like set more settings, some project settings. One thing I would like to have is have the external downloads be directed in its own folder or subfolder. Could I have a option that allows me to do that, so I know what is actually mine and what was just downloaded off the internet? Because right now it just installs.
Yeah, so if
Based
you
on-
install this, it's going to go in the Concrete folder because that's the group it's in.
Yeah, like if there's like if I could just have like a way to manipulate, like just configure the editor to do what I want to do.
Well, what
be
would you
great.
want it to do? Would you want this to go into a subfolder that's called Ambient CG and then Concrete?
It sounds like
the author
knowing
name?
Reap, what Reap's describing, knowing him, would be like you'd have a folder where you're like creator name or whatever name in the download folder. So it has like a higher order folder where it's just listed as this is downloaded, this is not your work, this is just something you grabbed from so and so.
Yeah, just a way to like separate it. Like I don't know if it will be in the root materials folder or a separate folder in the game folder, but
Maybe.
I would, yeah, because they have like different naming schemes and everything, and I'm very like particular when it comes to like how things are named and like the capitalization of things and everything. Yeah.
Can you, with the way it's set up now, is there a way where you could like select it to put it on a different drive under a different directory, or no?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you could like have like a field here and say like, you know, folder to download to. The only thing
Wait,
that makes me cautious about this is I'm thinking about having the scene file. Okay, once all of these things are stored in our system, at that point they've all got a unique identifier associated with them. So this material, this is number 480. So with the number 480, I always know that I always know the item came from this source. And I'm thinking about storing the material, the asset identifiers in the scene file so that I can send this file, I can send just the scene file to somebody else. And then when they open it, it'll have like a dialogue that appears that says the following items are required for, you know, are used. Do you want to install these? And then you can just either press a button and download them one at a time, or do like install all, or maybe have checkboxes or something. I don't know. And then it'll just download all the items that you need to populate this scene.
I see. Yeah.
In that kind of case, I would still think that one of the other options would be an option where you could say it's installed locally and then give it the directory of where you already have it. Even if you wanted to fill it in and kind of fake it, if someone was doing that, that seems like you'd give more control to the end user.
What if there was a separate like download button where it just like would link to this, and then you would just get like a dialogue like that, and you could just download it to whatever location you wanted?
Like that directory and it get marked into the scene or whatever, kind of like what 3ds Max and AutoCAD does.
I don't know what they do.
So what they do, they basically just let you set the directory, and then like if you're working on, say, a model file within the plain text form of that OBJ or whatever, it directs to whatever directory that you set it to. And then it just loads it from the project file when you launch it.
I don't know what
Those kind of...
What do you think, Reed?
Sorry.
What I really want is I want to be able to download like everything. So, and then I want to have almost like a model repository of my own, and where I can say, oh, that texture will look good here, but instead of re-downloading it 100 times, I want to be able to like isolate that and be like, okay, this is not mine. This is not. I can use it, but it's not mine, and I don't have to worry about like renaming it or fitting my file scheme. I just want more control of like how I can import assets into the scene.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying like we can do that, but I like if I don't know if the editor doesn't know where the file is, then higher order functions like I'm describing, like automatically
Right.
grabbing the assets that you're missing, those aren't going to work if you if you start making things more complicated.
right.
Well, I would again. My thing comes from working with Autodesk software mostly. In that case, though, it doesn't become more complicated if you define where, say, the materials are coming from. You set the directory. So if you like in your database, let's say you have that material 480, you download 480, but you don't want it on drive E, you put it on drive C and you put it into some random folder. It should be as simple as just making the editor say, okay, 480 at this point for this user is now defined on drive C, and then that's in your files. I mean, at that point, you're just basically setting up file directories and you're allowing the user to create their own file directory. So, like in Reap's case, from the sound of it, you would have all these downloaded textures that he can reference. And then you would just have it where when he publishes something, those files are either included or referenced with whatever he's working on.
Okay, so
I mean-
how many additional bug reports is this feature worth?
Good question.
That's the question.
Good question. because-
I'm not saying like I'm not making any judgment on it right now. I'm just saying like that's the thing to consider. There's a lot of different. I see what you're saying. There's a lot of different ways we can do it. I wouldn't worry about the downloading because I think what's going to happen is it's going to download these into like C program data, Ultra Engine, assets. It's going to download the zip file and just leave it there in a central
So
location.
let me ask you that.
So that if
You
it
said,
does,
like, C.
let me finish. So that if it does download the same item again later in another project or something, it'll just extract it from the zip file you already have on your drive.
So the end user, you can define. So you could probably, I assume you can define what drive it goes to outside of, say, C drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, though, I mean, half the work of what was brought up has already been done. Then you could easily, and again, it's not easy, but you could very easily just set up like custom directories that are checked, like where the editor will say, okay, you have XYZ directory set up, and in these directories, I'm looking for. There's your files, your textures, whatever.
So you basically want like your own local repository like this, where stuff is stored that you can import into the current project you're working on at any time.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I would also like, yeah, and
We could also just have like a checkbox or something that just displays just downloaded files,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just displays the things that have already been downloaded. That's another way to do it.
I also kind of, this only will affect like 3% of users, but I would also like to have my own like I have like a NAS drive, right? And I would just like to just be able to like throw textures I made in the past on that drive. This way I don't have to and I can just pull it from my server, but I get the presentation of Ambient CG and your website.
Wait, what?
He wants to
But-
basically create a repository where he can draw off his NAS server. to reference, say, something that's stored non-locally from his computer while running the editor.
I don't know what a NAS server is.
It's a computer that just holds files. That's all.
Yeah.
So it's a separate computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you communicate with it?
I can communicate through SMB. I can communicate it through. I can go on the. I have a web interface. If once I get my new router set up, I can port forward it out so you can access it across the internet. It's just a drive file. Like you can interface it to any file protocol. So like if you can just mount it to like Z. That's why I have it now. It's just the Z drive. The one I have is the one that I have everything on is kind of slow because there's a discount Western Digital one and it's a minor disk. But it'll be cool if I could just be like, all right, this is all my useful textures that I made in the past that I always have.
How many people do you think that will use this feature?
Well,
I would argue I use it, and I have like an external 12 terabyte Western Digital drive. It's one of those features where on the surface it sounds like most people won't use it, but when you're dealing with many gigabytes to terabytes of, say, model data or texture data, it's more reliable to dump it to, let's say, safe storage. I don't think you're going to get statistics on how many people will use it, but having it is a valuable thing.
Right, and it's just using the Windows file protocol. It's not like connect to my SVN server or connect to my Perforce server. It's literally just a drive, a mounted drive.
Hmm.
Even if it's like 5% of your user base, it's still something to at least consider. It's something I would use if I get into Ultra Engine, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, let's go one step at a time with this stuff.
Yeah, it's not. I don't need it. I just like, oh, it'd be cool because I hate copying and pasting files from multiple different projects.
If we go back a sec, what I was kind of pointing out where you can define the pathway, if you just integrate like separate repositories someone can make locally, and then you just reference that directory, you don't have to do anything major to do that. Very likely you could do something like what Reap's getting at with a NAS server. You could just reference the file directory because that's how it functions.
Well, then somebody's going to want, their Backblaze account, and then somebody else is going to want their S3 bucket, and somebody else is going to want Dropbox, and
oh well, that's a different protocol though, and I'm talking more like local file access.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's something to consider, I guess.
All right. Well, we'll see after other things are done. Let's see. They're making a network driver mount point. I'm curious. Can you write plugins for the editor using the plugin SDK? It would be nice to bring Blender and the editor to transfer materials made in Blender. I mean, to transfer materials into Blender, you would just need to write a material file exporter, wouldn't you? Would a material?
Well, the materials you have, where those are coming from? What, like Hugging Face and all that? Those are just standard PBR materials.
No, the PBR materials are coming from like websites, from different websites that do that, like Ambient CG, TextureCAN, etc.
You just import that then directly to Blender.
Our material file format is JSON based, so if Blender can just export the file, the images, and a JSON file, then it's fine. Blender does not support BC7 or any of the modern DDS compression formats because they just don't think it's important.
I
Yeah.
use Paint.net to convert when I'm doing a 3D model that Blender won't cooperate with. But
Well, I mean, that's the downside of free software is your opinion means nothing basically when you're using it, because they don't have to
That's
listen.
true.
They don't have to listen to you. So materials that in your open scene in Blender are stored in the blend file. Material nodes could load these and required from the inside of the bridge. The material, are you talking about like the custom shader stuff that they have, like where you there's no way to do that without like rewriting Blender. Yeah, I'm not even gonna attempt to do that. We may do like a shader designer kind of feature in yeah, we may do some kind of like shader designer feature in the editor itself through our own system, but I'm not going to try to emulate what they're doing. I don't think.
I got another thing.
Doomage, yes, that's exactly what I'm describing. Andy, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was working on with some brushes in my open world scene, and I figure out that working with brushes is cool when you have a normal level, we say it like this, without vegetation and foliage, because in the top left and
What's that?
I make a screenshot, right?
Okay.
I think this can explain it a bit better. So I posted in this channel. As you can see in the back viewport, you can see all the trees, and it's kind of hard. No, not this 3D viewport. I mean the bottom right. You can see the trees in this viewport, and I think it would be cool to have an option to hide the foliage in this viewport.
Yeah, when you said this like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and when you said that, I haven't mentioned this, but at the time I was like, oh crap, we really need to be able to like hide the mesh layers. So that's actually something I was thinking about already. Like I haven't done it yet, but like have an option to hide mesh layers because you were pointing that out like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to work with brushes, and then you can see the trees, and they are just
So wait, let me get this straight. Did I hear Andy say that he likes CSG?
For some things, I use it, for example, for walls or something like this.
Huh, that's interesting. Do you think you might even say that you love it?
Maybe in a few weeks, yes.
Yeah, that's funny.
I just create some walls.
Well,
it's a good thing.
Yeah, the and having this extra, I mean, this is like CSG on crack. This is very cool. I like this stuff. And we talked about it last week a little bit, but I think the next stage for this stuff is actually going to be having stuff that's sort of like CSG, but not really. In what I mean there is you've got vertices, you've got edges, you've got faces, but it doesn't have to be convex. So I think that's how I want to do things like arches and stuff, because I want smooth grips to be all within the same object, because otherwise you have to do like a search for neighboring objects, and it's kind of ugly. I'm not sure what I'm going to call those. I might just call it meshes in the editor, but I see it as like I want to have like an arch shape and some other shapes, and they might still be carvable. I don't think they can carve other objects though. And then I also want a plane with a spline creation tool, so you can go like click, 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 and then it just creates walls for all the corner points that you indicated. I think that would be very powerful.
And the spline tool.
Yeah. So let's see. We want like arches are the big one. That's the one that we really need. But like arches, maybe curved stairs, Tubes. You can do a lot with a tube. You can
Yeah.
remove pieces
saw
of it. What's
I saw
that?
someone complain. I saw someone complain on the forums or here. They were upset that the tube function's gone.
Well, I don't. I think they were just asking.
Um,
Yeah, I took that out because what I was doing, what I was first doing is I was doing smooth groups. In order to, those are only useful for cylinders, basically, because that's the only shape that is a convex object. So I was the build we had a couple of weeks ago. I was searching for neighbors that had overlapping vertices, like overlapping edges. So like if this object and this object, actually these would not form a smooth group because this edge does not match. Can't find any example of it right now. Okay, let me do this real quick. Okay, so if this face and this face had a smooth group in common, then this would form a rounded edge. And I don't like that because these are separate objects. So I really don't like in the loading code, I don't like this to do for a search for neighbors and then search that neighbor for adjacent edges. Because if this, it would create a lot of weird situations, like if you move this object, then the editor has to update this object too. It has to update the smoothing. And so when you're creating the undo step for this action, you also have to include this object in the undo step. And it created a lot of complication.
yeah, and the undo system is still broken.
As far as the undo system goes, it would slow me trying to implement that in every single step of every feature I make. It would slow things down too much. And also a lot of this stuff is stuff that I go back and redesign or do it a little bit differently. So I only really want to add the undo capability as the last step.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things wrong with the undo system. Like it always lets me down. Like every time it's like, oh, I moved this brush. I didn't mean to do that. Let me undo. And it's like, nope, can't undo it. Like,
Well, I'd say it's really like one of the that's a polishing step before the final release. Because otherwise, it's just gonna take. I'm gonna end up doing a lot of redundant work.
all right.
You know what would be really cool feature too? I posted a screenshot from a wall in this channel, a bit on top, with brushes. And if you had a tool to destroy this wall, like you can create then a crack or to make it not like like a solid wall. So you can deform maybe some vertices to make it a bit look broken. You know what I mean?
Not exactly. I can think of some. What, do you want like a big chunk taken out of it?
Yeah, for example, like that you can cut out some stuff.
Well, you can. It's just that the shapes tend to be very very well defined. I mean, you know the carve feature, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's basically what the carve feature is. It's just
Oh, okay.
but I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for.
Wait, I search for image.
Yeah, if you can show us an image of like what you want it to look like afterwards, that'd help.
Thing like I think this is really cool. It's a house wall, but in the end something like it's uploading. Wait.
Okay.
Now it is here. Something like this.
Okay, so how can we do something like that? That is a good question. Is there an easy way for us to do that, to make that
Yeah, because I would have that's vertex manipulation work.
I was about to say it's vertex manipulation. You basically need a dynamic model, and the dynamic model you then need secondary, trinary, and so on models that fill in the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the if you have a feature that's too complicated to so complicated nobody wants to use it, then you don't really have a feature. That's how a lot of this stuff is. It's like, well, we could do it a few ways. Is there some way we can make this cool and easy to where this reminds me of like this is sort of like the next step of tessellation, right? Because with tessellation you add detail onto the surface, and with this you're just sort of subtracting geometry.
Mm.
I don't know, but if
Basically,
anybody comes up with any ideas, I'm open to.
yeah, I have no idea, but I mean, it's a thing. Maybe I can find some idea or someone else. But I think this is a really cool feature to be able to destroy things, like when you see the Battlefield games, and when you shoot to a house, you can destroy the whole house, for example.
Well, when they do stuff like that, a lot of it is just they're creating a bunch of special 3D models in advance. And so they're creating all these pre-broken pieces. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but like in most cases when I've seen stuff like that, it's like it's already this it's so much work, in other words, to set it up that you don't even want to do it.
Yeah, it's like that feature was like used like in the beginning of Cyberpunk, and you never see it again. Like it's very specialized.
That was not when it comes to Cyberpunk CDPR. All they did was a general brush that broke. They didn't actually do a dynamic breaking for that at all.
Nice.
It was scripted, purely scripted.
Yeah.
Now Newton actually does have some dynamic. Let's see. It has fracturing of convex solids. I have to be very careful how I. But again, I don't know if it's going to be exactly what you're looking for. I think it might be. Yeah.
It's on Newton.com. Just look it up.
NewtonDynamics.com, yeah. They do have fracturing. Convex hull fracturing. Oh, that's me. Hey. Why is everything intelligent on the internet written by me?
I don't know.
22 matches. Okay. So, do you guys ever do that? You like search for something and you find your own post like from years later?
Yeah.
No comment.
Has like 0 views. Like I'm trying to ask a very specific question, no one got back to me. And I'm
do you remember, Josh, the digital molecular matter that LucasArts bought up from way back, like 2008?
Yeah, I thought that was more recent though.
Oh, it's way earlier, dude. The patents on a lot of the tech has gone public, and it's not as good as what they sold in their tech demos. But actually, the Newton Dynamics has references, if you go back to 2011 for their work in the license, that actually references digital molecular matter. It was Julio Jerez or something, and then Elaine Suero or something. It's been a while since I looked into it.
He's mentioned in the patents, or?
Oh, no, in references.
Oh, okay.
So Newton Dynamics is, well, they're not new, but they're fairly new.
No, Newton has been around for a long time.
I know. That's why I said they're not new, fairly new. Then again, I've been around on the internet since the BBS days, so my time might be a little fucked.
No,
I shouldn't say that word. Sorry.
Newton is like, they've been around for like probably 15 years.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, if anybody has any ideas, yeah, I'm always open to new techniques we can implement. It's just, it always comes down to ease of use. Like if it's something that requires so much work that, nobody wants to use it, or if it's only good for one special demo, that's not as useful. But if we can find a way to do stuff like this where it's like a general use purpose solution, then that kind of stuff is very good. So everybody certainly keep your ears out. This is a really good segue into our project. Now you guys have had a little bit of time to see what the painting features. Like this is something that we could do all of this with. This would look really good with like painting and tessellation. This stuff here, and I actually just linked to. I saw a nice material that caught my eye.
Oh yeah,
PBR
these are-
PX. Look at this.
These are decals.
Well, that's a decal, but we could probably turn it into. Oh, look at that. Doesn't that look just like his photo?
Yeah.
All that stuff in the corner there.
Yeah. If we have the right lighting temperatures, we could probably match it pretty well.
Look at that. We could do, and now, I mean, this is stuff that we could never do this before. So actually, Andy, I'm going to give you credit for discovering another technique here. Concrete rubble in the corner of the floor like this, I think would look fantastic.
Yeah, we just gotta have a good way of preventing from bleeding through the other wall. But then again, it probably wouldn't
We
matter.
have that. We have that. We have the ability to the paint tool. Selected objects only. Picked objects only. That's what that's for.
There would have to be 2 separate floor pieces then. You can't just drag one brush and have it cover both
Okay.
rooms.
Or maybe you want rubble on both sides. But I don't know. So, anyways,
Why not? Wait. I'm trying to figure that out. What do you mean by that, Rape?
So, if you have like the floor piece, but if it's just one brush, and if you go paint it, it will still paint on the other side of the wall. But if you only want it on this side of the wall, you would have to actually have 2 brushes for each floor, and then when you paint on the floor closest to you, it will only paint on that floor with selected objects only.
What? Okay, so you're talking about Ultra Engine, right?
Yeah.
And so what is defining, I mean, from the camera, what's defining the scene depth?
Well, we're not using like the depth. We're just using brushes. Like, if you have 2 separate brushes, you have more control of what gets painted, what doesn't. That's it.
Coming from Unreal, Source Engine, Unreal, CryEngine, if you have the camera, why can't you define the lighting in the scene then from where the camera's placed?
Well, I wasn't talking about lighting. I was talking about painting.
Well,
he's talking
again,
about this
this-
feature.
the same calculation should be done like for the single pass of the scene. So you should be able to get the depth of the scene without any bleed if you're just doing the initial calculation of the ray cast through the camera. Again, I'm not familiar with Ultra Engine or any of that, but
So you use 2 pieces if you want this to only appear
Yeah.
on one side of the wall.
Yeah.
So this was done in response to some of the limitations we were running into. It looks like this material has an alpha channel in the texture, so it only shows up like some places. I think that's how they did set up the surface imperfections, most of those materials. But this was done in response to our limitations we were hitting in general with level design. And now we no longer have those limitations. So my question to you guys is, as far as the first-person shooter template goes, what do you have any better idea of? I know I'm being frustratingly
Indecisive.
I have a question.
indecisive with this. But do we've had a little bit more time to like consider like where we want to go with this. What do you guys think?
I have a question. Because I wasn't there last week, do I need to subdivide for example, you painted on the ground of this. Do I need to subdivide the ground plane? Ah, yeah, okay.
For two reasons, you have explicit control over the subdivision.
Yeah.
You can type it in here, or you can just hit these buttons. And the reason we have that is for two reasons. The painting feature works per vertex. You can still, because of the way the blending works, you can still get very nice per pixel blending, but it's actually only applied per vertex. So you need to subdivision if you want more resolution for vertex painting, but you don't need as high of a resolution as you might think. Like something like this is probably fine for almost everything because the pixel blending is so good. And then the other reason we need this is if you're using tessellation, the tessellator has a limited number of iterations it can perform. So it can only subdivide each of these quads up like maybe 32 times or something like that. And so if you have to keep your polygons down to a certain size, or else it'll run out of subdivision and it won't be able to make it as small as you want. So that's the reasons for that. If you haven't watched the video, I think it was very good. So I would definitely recommend watching that.
Wait, so what is the ultimate limit then when you talk about subdivision? What would be the ultimate limit for like a texture in your engine? If I were to stretch something out, kind of crank up the tessellation all the way to its peak, what would you be looking at?
Limit for what?
The texture, like
the texture resolution.
Yeah.
It would be defined by the hardware, I think. It'll be 16384 or 3276. Maybe some. I wonder. Let's see. I'd say 32768. I think divided by. Okay, yeah, that's right. That I would guess is probably the limit on most modern cards. Let me see what that is times 32768 times 4 bytes. Divided by 1024 is that many kilobytes. Divided by 2024 is that many megabytes. Yeah, I would guess that 32768 is probably the upper limit because that's 4 gigs.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if 16384 is probably might be the upper limit on even on the latest cards. Because that's like one PBR material taking up your entire video memory.
Let me ask you, this is really niche question, but let's say I had access to an H100 and I had, say, 100 plus gigs of VRAM and I could load it in. Would the engine just fail on loading, or would it actually load something in higher?
There's no limits built into it. I mean, if it's just defined by your hardware.
Okay. It's a good point. I mean, that's what I was looking for, but yeah.
To go back to Ant's question, Josh, I think the limitations is still models, but if we can keep everything architectural and simple, I think we'll be in good shape for the most part, as long as we don't have anything like complex or hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like the idea of having a multiplayer like map because we can reuse it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now we can make it look so much better than what you were thinking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at with the project. If we can stick with the vision we're set up now, because there was like a lot of like unknowns with the first demo we were thinking about because it was very asset heavy, and so if we could just make a small space look really really good, um, and with very limited models, we'll be in good shape. That's actually more of a scoped project for us.
Okay. What do you?
I haven't
what do
been
you-
here
you're-
for a while. I want to ask, what was the multiplayer project? And
It's a single player. It's the first person shooter template. But it's more than just gonna be like a template. It's actually gonna like show you how big doors should be, how big windows should be, and how to. It's more for like a reference guide too of like how to use Ultra Engine. But we want something to showcase the features of the engine, not just have it be like in a dev box. But if we make it like you just run around and shoot monsters, that's pretty much it. That's all it needs to be.
Yeah, just like something that looks good and offers some degree of reusability. Andy,
Yeah,
do you have any thoughts on this?
On the map for the features, you mean this?
Yeah.
I think this is a cool thing. I kinda, as I said, I kinda start liking the brush and what you can do with it. It saves a lot of time.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. But again, you fix the main issue with brushes where you're limited by the texture artist, and texture art has gone to Substance Painter and everything, and Quixel.
Yeah, and then I really like this stuff because it's like we're taking advantage of some of those ideas, but this is still like a level editing feature.
Yeah, but one big thing would be good that you could combine, for example, this brush together and have it as a group. So you can group, for example, more entities or more brushes together and move them around, duplicate them, and maybe also export them as an MDL file, for example.
Yeah.
Like
well,
combined brush or something like this.
I mean, you can do that right now by parenting them, and so now, like, if I click on
You would
anything,
need-
the whole group is.
Yeah, you would need to have some feature to group together with the last selected object, for example, like this.
I agree. It would be nice to if you could just go up here and go like tools group, and then all your selected objects get parented to one of them.
Or right click group or something.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or Control and G, and then you can create a group with a hotkey.
Yeah,
And
that's
then-
actually something that was in the old Hammer, like before it was called Hammer. What was it called?
Worldcraft.
Worldcraft.
Yeah, not to be confused with Worldcraft, the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we can reuse the GLTF saving feature to just like save as, export as model or something.
Yeah, I think we can do that. Yeah, I'm very keen on. I really like this stuff because now we can add detail in like with both this and tessellation. We can add a lot of detail in the foreground, whereas before we could only do stuff like that looked like that.
Your material got a problem. Your material system right now with green color. I was downloading right now. If you go to the asset library and go to Moss, there is a category. It's called Moss, or just type in Moss in the search field.
It might be the saturate. It might if you.
Yeah.
I have it set up so that it.
Then if you download now the first one, then it's just gray.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll show you what's going on.
You
This
made
might-
the-
I,
you made-
I
you
have.
made- No, go ahead.
Sorry, Reeve. Go ahead.
No, he made the default saturation 0. So
Oh,
by
0.
default-
Yeah, that's a mistake.
yeah, so now that's saved into everyone's project folder.
Who's on? Yeah. Okay.
So So you might want to flush your settings or change it to 35 or something.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
do you see
No,
that?
I think
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
He
Yeah,
beat
that
me
was
to
my
it.
bad.
Yeah. So
I think I'll
that's-
probably get rid of that feature because it's not. I think it's just more trouble than it's like having the saturation is good in the material
No,
settings, but
it's a cool feature, actually, because this moss material looks also cool if you put it on concrete, and it's saturated then, and then it looks like dirt in the end. So
I wonder what
it's a
it,
cool feature.
let's see what it looks like if I replace this with. Let's see, replace moss. Okay, well that's way too strong. Let's see if I can play with the settings of this.
can saturation be per vertex too?
Wait, what?
So let's say you have this moss texture, and let's say you really like it, but then you go to do something like this, and you're like, wow, that's too saturated. Is there a way you can just desaturate it on the face, or you have to actually make a new material?
I mean, not currently. I mean, I could add something like that, but
It's not that difficult. It's not that.
well, it's like where does it end?
Yeah.
We're gonna replace every single material setting. Okay, so I want a pretty sharp smoothing because I want it to be like either there or not there, and I want the height blend to contribute a lot. I'm gonna exaggerate that. I don't like how this is turning out. I don't like this. Okay, that's not working out for me. I'm gonna do something different. Select all these objects, and then I'm just gonna start hitting minus 10% and see what that does. Oh, it's a little bit more like what I was expecting.
It is some pretty nice alpha blending. I'll give it that.
Anyway, yeah, we're still figuring out this stuff and how it works, but that's basically it. That looks pretty cool. Let's see. Okay, so we want to go with the industrial area. I'm very stoked about building meshes for this because I can very easily picture like an area. I can picture like small little areas that will look very cool.
Yeah. I wouldn't do industrial area, but I kind of wanted to do like an overgrown, a little bit overgrown, like
We can
like
now.
Yeah, like America Rust Bucket, like an abandoned factory or something, or a
Okay.
brewery or something. And I also want like, I don't know, like I downloaded the View program. I didn't install it or anything because I don't know how it works. But we can actually make a nice sunset skybox or something. Because I want like that. I want like that orange lighting and such. I think that looks really cool.
Yeah,
I
I'd say
think we can make now a really cool scene with this stuff. Also with this overgrowing, and we can paint details, and I think
We could paint rust.
yeah.
we could have done this before, but it just would have been so much work.
But we need to model painting first. So if we can paint on models, you can basically create an old engine and put it down, and just paint rust on it, and yeah. Also on the ground, you say it with the dirt piles and all the stuff. I think this would be really cool.
Yeah, all this stuff can just be painted on with tessellation. Like
Most of it, the bigger stuff needs to be models, but
Yeah. Also the walls. If you see the wall, there's a brick wall, and the image is not that good, but the paint is falling off from the bricks, and I also think you could create a brick wall, and then you could paint some yeah, some
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
over it.
I think we can do that pretty easily. Yeah, I think this is going to be okay. So that's how you guys. You just want. Okay, so you're saying what I'm hearing from you is you want to go with the sort of outdoor industrial yard, but you want
Yeah.
to just trash the place.
Dilapidated.
So
That's not right.
it's abandoned now.
It's abandoned. It has been since the Depression era. You know, maybe graffiti because of some drug lords came in for a little bit in the 80s or something. So you see graffiti on the walls and just
Yeah.
really like
And it's got to be
Also
like hot
maybe
pink because it's the 80s.
maybe also a tree and it's growing and the nature is getting back the
yeah,
place.
nature's taking over like the Portal 2 test chambers kind of thing. We have vines will be a little bit hard, but
Okay.
we can do moss and stuff.
Yeah, I'd say like so okay, Portal 2 is one source of inspiration sort of. I'd say like this reminds what you guys are describing me, it reminds me more of id Software's Rage than anything else. That might be like a good thing to take a look at too, just to for ideas.
It's kind of what it reminded me of. 2010 when Rage came out.
Yeah, yeah, it's a similar idea. It's just we're not. They were baking all those textures together, and this is dynamic. So it doesn't have all the problems with like texture memory that they had.
Well, that's why they used the mega textures. Like some of the textures were what 8,000 something by 8,000 something, 16,000 whatever by 16,000.
See, now this I'm just demonstrated like the benefits of this approach versus the hotspot thing that we were discussing before. So you have repetition here. You can see the same features being repeated. You couldn't really do that with the hotspot texturing. You were very limited to just the texels would be very stretched if you made something that was very big. So it's very cool to see how this has turned out.
Also,
And also
for
it
brush,
handles angles like that. Sorry, go ahead.
I think we would need a bit more predefined brush. For example, this block you added it. I'm not sure if it's too complicated to create a predefined brush out of it. Or,
Well,
yeah,
this
or
is just a
sphere.
box. This is just a box, and I just pulled in the vertices. I did this in
Yeah.
the 3D viewport. I think. Yeah, that's all I did.
Okay.
Andy loves brushes.
Curious, Josh, from what you're doing, are you licensing from anybody or is this all just in-house open source stuff?
Open source. What's open source?
No, I was asking like, are you licensing various engine aspects?
Oh, any
or are
third
you
party. No,
Yeah.
anything that the only stuff that I'm using is some open source. Let's see, there's like Newton for physics.
OpenAI for sound.
I can't think of anything else. I mean, I'm using probably a dozen different open source libraries, but just for various little things here and there.
Okay.
Okay, so we want to trash the place.
Yeah. But right now, we gotta just get the map playing well first before we can trash it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel very optimistic and like enthusiastic about our abilities now.
Yeah.
What I discovered, I think the buildings need to be like some of them need to be about twice as big as they are because buildings shrink by like 50% when you walk inside them. I discovered. If you look at I don't know if I have
Yeah,
it.
because of the installation, the framework, and all that.
They look a lot smaller. Like those little those two buildings with like the slanted roofs and the little loading bays outside. When you walk inside them, they feel like sheds.
Yeah. Um. There's, but doing like outdoor areas, it's gonna be hard. I mean, it's gonna be easy to go back into those maps and just resize brushes because everything is just. It doesn't even have beveling on them. They're just single brushes. But I kind of want to make each building its own thing and still be able to plop it in. But because I don't know, it's just I'm trying to make it as least overwhelming as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's also hard when we don't have any monsters to shoot at, so we don't know if a space is too big enough or there's no bottleneck or.
Now, just assume it's about the size of a human.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You gotta make sure. I'm come from like gameplay perspective, so I was like, oh, I care if this plays good before it looks good. While you're trying to say, oh, I want it to look good because it's an engine demo, and then you're saying like, well, it just needs to work. It doesn't, you know what I mean? So it's kind of becoming like at the same thing at two different angles with two different sides of things.
Yeah. At this point, I don't really care if it's like a good game. I mean, that's like that's. I'm sure
Right.
we'll learn some things from it, but it's not really
Right, but then
something
if
I'm worried
something
about.
like, but then if like the AI gets caught on something because we painted something or we detailed something to like
Yeah,
absolute hell.
we'll just. I think we'll be okay. The recast is pretty reliable. Yeah, recast is another AI pathfinding. That's another open source feature that we rely on. Yeah, I'm not too concerned. I mean, if the nav mesh builds okay, then the movement will be fine. They don't even need any collision. Like, they'll just stick on to the nav mesh.
All right, we'll see, but
Maybe. Do we want to like make any sketches or things of like what we have in mind? Like, do we have any better idea of like the layout and like like sort of like medium-sized features that we know we want to incorporate into the architecture?
I want. Well, I think the map needs to be reworked. I want to put like a rail, like a end of the line railway track, and put like a train or something for visibility as a visibility block. How much it sticks out or where it is, I don't know yet. And then the idea is that it's like the train comes out like a tunnel or something, and then the train's in the
Okay.
middle, and
It would
then you have these buildings are surrounding that train track.
I would maybe build just the inside scene and not going too much outside. Maybe like a gate where the train is standing in. The problem is if you want to build an outside scene in something like an abandoned industrial look, then you have really much to do because you need pipes, you need all the outside, the other buildings, yeah. And if you make an indoor scene, it's
Easier to
it's
test.
easier, yeah, and it's not that time consuming like building an outside scene with an abandoned industrial look.
What would the
Yeah.
layout for an inside scene look like?
Like an old warehouse with 2 floors and
Yeah, I was actually
in the big garage where a train is standing in or something like this, and loader for loading
Yeah.
train.
One thing we can reference is Black Mesa because a lot of the gameplay is indoors. But
I'm
so
okay
we
with
can-
that because it does seem like when you have like something that's like a combination of outdoors and indoors, you have to. Yeah, the tricky thing is you have to like plan the size of the buildings and their layout, and then you have to like incorporate that into the interior their interior, and so you sort of have like two things going on, you know?
Yeah, and that was kind of overwhelming me, especially because I mostly did portal maps for the last 15 years. Like I could do outside maps and everything. It's just not my specialty. But an inside map I can do easily.
I agree that's a lot easier like to do because you don't have to worry about how things look like from the other sides of the wall. You can just make things the shape you want. If you guys can come up with I'm like drawing a blank on this, but if you can sketch like what we did, like our sketches we made, if you can like come up with a sketch for like the general layout of the thing, then I'd be totally okay with that. And then it would be more like we have a more focused area and we're just spending more time like detailing everything and making it look good. I think that might be a better
Well, I think the
use of our
flow
time.
what we have. I think the flow what we have is good. It's just now we have to like not make it more of an inside map than an outside map, which will be easier because again we don't have to accommodate for the size of the buildings and everything. Like, oh, the building is this big, and it for the outside, but then when you go in, it's like claustrophobic. It's like walking into like a hallway. Well, we can just be like, oh, these are just separate, isolated room areas, and then we connect it that way. And then we don't have to worry about um, doing out of bounds mapping, where we have to paint things outside the map, so you don't feel like you're just in a void. We could just put a wall.
Yeah, actually, I didn't have any plan at all for that. I was just gonna leave it. I was just gonna leave it blank.
My idea was just put a terrain, just make the rocks very high.
Yeah, I don't think it would. I think it would be very hard to make it look good.
Yeah,
Uh,
but yeah,
I mean, Andy's saying he just thinks we should just do like indoors only, and I kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
don't.
and then we could just grab annual skybox from
Yeah.
like polypaving, and we don't have to, and then we can just adjust the
Okay,
things
so
how we
can
want.
we find a good layout and start like sketching what this indoor scene is going to look like?
Yeah, I could probably shell something out, and then we'll just do the iterative process of I do something, I get burnt out, you look at it, you do something, and then we'll start that process.
Okay.
Um, just like another thing though, I will have my brush default to no bevel because I see beveling as a detailing aspect, not a shelling. Because when I shell, I want I need to see the actual like raw geometry.
Mm-hmm.
So my checkbox is going to be disabled, but you can just select everything and add bevels when we're ready. Also, with the beveling, you also have to like hide the faces and everything. So
Yeah.
again, I see more beveling as a detailing. I understand why you made it default, like because you want to show it's there, but I have it off because I
Okay.
need to like see the raw geometry.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and the other thing we can do is if we have like photos or screenshots from games too, then paste those, and it always helps. Indoors only
Yeah.
is better.
So so we're looking at Rage, we're looking at Portal 2, the dilapidated stuff, the what else can we reference?
Stalker, like some of the underground labs.
Yeah, and Black Mesa too. I actually want to use that gore texture you posted and use it as like the Zen stuff in Half-Life Alyx.
The what?
The gore texture that you like so much that you'll bring.
Oh, do we want
Like-
I can't find the texture right now. I don't. Let me 3D assets. 3D assets dot one. I bet
Like
they-
maybe there should be some storytelling with the why there's monsters flying around. I don't know.
I think this is the one I'm looking for. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. So this is at 3dtextures.me. This is the alien eggs. Like,
Yeah,
I think
if we-
this could work really well.
Yeah, if we like paint that on like the Zen stuff in Half-Life Alyx, that would be an interesting story beat.
Yeah, and it's something like people have never really seen before.
Well, it's just interesting because I think in Source 2 those were all separate meshes, and now we can just paint it wherever we want.
Yeah. Okay. And this also, there's another idea here that's having two different kinds of material is a nice way of preventing things from being boring. And you see this a lot in the design of id Software's monsters. Their stuff, a lot of their stuff is like biomechanical. Especially if you look at the very early, like the sprites for like Doom games, like the character design, it's like half of it is like muscle and skin, and then half of it is like mechanical stuff. And the
Yeah,
idea there
so-
is just like having those two things makes it a lot more interesting than if it's just one or the other.
Well, what if instead of doing an overgrown scene, we do the overgrown with the alien stuff? So we have that biology versus artificial.
Well, let's
Balance.
just try it and see.
Yeah, obviously let's just do real world references, and then we can add the fantasy element after. But now we're kind of back to square one where we need a layout for the map. But we can.
But we
I
know
think we can
why we know like better why we're taking this approach though a lot better.
Yeah, but we can. I think we can reuse. I think we can reuse the layout of the old map. We just need to repackage it as a indoor map and say, okay, what is a room and what is.
I don't think so because that was a bunch of disconnected buildings that were
Right. Right.
all right. So, I'm in streaming mode. What is his name? I forgot.
Mute left.
Newt. That's it. That's it. So he's got to go. Have a good weekend, Newt.
He left.
Well, maybe he'll see the video. Who's this person? Oh, Kent. Hello. I didn't notice you came in.
Hello. Yeah, it's been like 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I'd say we probably
Yeah.
need if we're doing an indoor level, I think we probably need like a whole new layout. But now we have a much better idea of like why we're making the decisions that we're making.
Right. So when it comes to models, we're just gonna need simple mechanical stuff.
I'm happy to do that myself, and it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot of fun now, actually.
Yeah.
I think there is some reference pictures are really cool. I was watching the Grand Tour a few months ago, and they was in Detroit. I'm not sure how far it is from your location, but there are some really cool abandoned buildings, like an old opera hall, which is a parking deck now, and other stuff.
Abandoned? Did you say abandoned opera house?
Yeah, and it's now an parking deck where cars can park in, and other stuff. It's really cool. Maybe we can have some reference pictures from there and build a.
Look, Abandoned Central.
Wow, that place is
Um,
old. That's crazy.
Right.
I love another thing I really like is if you watch like urban exploration videos on YouTube, they usually put like some kind of ambient drone music, and sometimes they'll find like a dead body or a homeless person or something, and oh, that place is trashed.
There's also a YouTube video. I forgot who he was. He used to go into like abandoned like shopping malls and such.
Yeah, and some like the shopping malls are okay, but I like it when they do the I really like it when they do like the abandoned asylums or like Soviet bunkers and stuff, and they show you all this like weird stuff. Yeah, it's more about, it's always about like what you might find and the anticipation. They never really find anything. But yeah, and it's so cool that we can actually like, I mean, we're looking at this stuff and it's like, oh yeah, how would I make that? Okay, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. It's very easy to now, I think, to do very stuff that would otherwise be very difficult.
And
Okay. Anything else?
no, yeah. So I'm pretty much on map again, I guess. Oh, should I reset the repo because it's a mess? I don't think it'll make the polls any faster because everything is in LFS. And I learned today that LFS just piles on data.
What do you
And you
mean
can't delete.
reset the repo?
Like just clean it up because we have like 3 different things going on.
The only, just as long as you leave the view models alone, that's,
Yeah.
we don't want that
Okay.
touched.
Yeah. Because I made a clean copy. I went through everything. I made a clean copy, and then you pushed something, and I didn't want to deal with merge issues, so I just said screw it, and I just left it alone.
Yeah, just leave the view models alone, and I'll and everything else.
Yeah, and also after 9.8, we gotta get back to components and think about how that will work and how the flow graph should work and how the prefabs and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, for the rest of 098, it's mostly just going to be like finishing out whatever missing bits there are in the material painting and tessellation, and then just bug fixing. By the way, the tessellation currently, it can create a lot of excess polygons at some angles. It'll hit some odd angles, and then the subdivision will go way too high. I think I'm going to change I was working on this like last night actually. I'm going to change the equation that's used, but that has not been added yet.
I
Yeah.
think,
What is it?
I think also if you could maybe for the deeper future, you could maybe use something like the flow graph, but more as an UI designer. Like that you can place some blocks here and there and save it then as an UI JSON file, which can be loaded or something like this.
Explain that.
So you have the flow graph, yes? It's pretty much 2D.
Yeah.
And you could maybe create something similar with some basic shapes, and yeah, you can, for example, place labels there and other stuff to design a UI, for example, so that you have an rectangle in the center of this stuff, and then you could create some labels or some progress bars
Oh, like
and other stuff.
you mean like make a UI designer that sort of looks based on
Yeah.
the same kind of. Yeah, it
based
actually
on-
does look. It does look. This looks like the visual, like this looks like the Visual Basic interface, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it could be a good selling point in the future also for you to have an UI designer and then export it as JSON file or something like this.
Yeah, I'm sure it would, because people always like. Yeah, people like that kind of stuff. I think it would. I think that would be useful. Yeah, so this abandoned approach, I think this is a really good idea because it allows us to make something that's going to look to most people. That I mean, this is I think it's going to look very cool. What we do, just based on the material painting stuff that we've done already, and I'd say the best example of that, even though it's completely different, is. Like this This is an
Yeah,
example
well-
where I just trashed the place, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, and we can do the alien slime on top.
So if we, instead of using, maybe not having rocks growing out of the rope walls, but we can produce
Well,
stuff like this now, which would
Mhm.
be very. I mean, this looks like not. It's weird, but like, I mean, this looks more AAA than anything I've probably done in the past. Just the general approach and style. We can do stuff very easily that looks like this. Hopefully, much better. I also really like this tile floor. So
can
leaning on that strength is probably, I think, a pretty good strategy to get the most bang for our buck.
Can you select the face where you want to paint on, or is it that for all faces then?
No, if you select a face, you can. Let's see. There's some options here. You can paint on everything. You can paint on the selected objects only, or you can paint on the picked object only, which is like the first thing that you
Yeah.
that you selected.
But
My
I
only
think painting on the face would be cool, but I think it would be more difficult to implement.
Well, there it is.
Yeah, but is it now also on the bottom if you flip it around? And is it now also painted on the bottom? Ah, no, it's hidden.
It's hidden.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Will it? Okay, so it's that's something I was thinking about. So I could add another. It would not be hard to add like per face. We could also have it like picked or selected, picked face only, or something like that. Yeah, we can do that.
Then you have more control, so yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Do you see any tiling? I don't see any tiling.
No,
Yeah,
no.
like
It looks very cool.
our ability to produce. I mean, I'm just programmer, so I think you guys can probably do a lot better with it than me. But our ability to produce stuff easily just shot up like way more.
Yeah, as I said, the next step would be to paint on the models then, and then you have an insane feature.
Insane features.
Oh, I'm not sure, but Unity, at least at the point when I went back from Unity, or when I left Unity alone, there was nothing like this. So you can't paint on stuff and highlight things with or paint details.
Well, I would not be surprised at all. I have no idea if they do.
You are right. You are right. But there is a package that can do that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's an extra
Yes, yes.
package you need to
Yes,
purchase,
yes.
maybe.
No, it's free, but it's an extra package. In
Yeah.
Ultra, it's better.
I think the big difference is like with Ultra, our level design features are front and center. And it does make a big difference in like the ease of use and the how well integrated it is into the entire workflow. So yeah, like based on the response I've seen so far from both in our community and also on YouTube, like the response has been very, very positive. So it will be very cool to see what you guys are able to create with this. Anything else, or is that the end of the video?
No, I just gotta think about how I wanna do the layout of the app now, because you want to be realistic, but you want good gameplay.
Okay, so with that, I think that's going to conclude our video. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for watching at home. And until next weekend, I will see you on the forums.